Let's use this introductory lesson on personal leadership to demonstrate how you might use these lessons for your group, regardless of size, regardless of how much time you have and how much resource you have available to you and your students. So every lesson kind of looks like this. There is plenty of white space. There are quotes. There's a clear goal for each lesson. And there are discussion questions. There is also, not in the introduction, but there is also a optional activity that you might do if you have students who enjoy activities. Maybe students on the younger end of the spectrum, like 4th and 5th grade. Each lesson gives you some text to read, and I suggest reading the text out loud, having students just take turns to read the text out loud. So yes, every student will need a copy of each lesson and something to write with. We always, as instructors and teachers, encourage active listening, right? And the best way to do that is to encourage them to underline one idea or two ideas that stand out to them while the text is being read out loud. After reading the text out loud and students have underlined a couple of key ideas that stood out to them, this is a good time to do this activity together. This Wheel of Life has some instructions under it for how to use it. And this is a very fun activity that all my students have done and they've all enjoyed. It is a self-assessment. It is an opportunity for them to evaluate every area of their lives. And so you should walk them through it with you. Do it together. All they are going to do is, first of all, ask themselves if their lives look more or less like the segments in this Wheel of Life. So the different areas of their life are friendships, physical health, church life, family relationships, prayer or word devotional life, their personal devotional life, academic work, schoolwork, and all their extracurricular activities, which includes sports they play, music, instrument lessons, hobbies that they do. And some of my students have businesses. So if they own a business, that would go under the extracurricular segment. Now you could, and I have, spent some minutes just talking about the parts of a life. Now, the one segment I think that might be different for each student in your class, depending on what kind of group you have, is the one that is church life. If you are a ministry leader, this is for a youth group or a youth retreat or a church group, then you have no issues with the church life segment of this wheel. But some students don't go to church. And I have found that this is a good time for you, assuming that you go to church and that you believe in the value of going to church as a Christian. This is a good time for you to get students to think about, do I want to go to church? Am I curious about what going to church would do for me in my life? It's not necessarily a time to tell them to go to church, but just to suggest looking into it if they are interested in church. Church is the means that God has ordained to save his people, right? And so us as instructors, as Christian teachers, Christian leaders, I think it's appropriate for us to challenge their lives and to encourage them to at least consider church as being a regular part of their life. Okay, the first paragraph underneath the caption instructs you for how to use this Wheel of Life. It's very simple. All students are going to do is rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied they are with each segment of their lives. They are simply going to ask themselves, how satisfied am I with my friendships? 10 is, I couldn't ask for more. I am completely satisfied with who my friends are, how many friends I have, what kind of friends they are. And then, 5 is, I'm okay. I'm okay. Could be better, but they're okay. One is, I don't have friends. I need to make friends. I don't even know where to begin with that. I don't even know why I don't have friends. The scale is subjective. A 5 to 1 student might be different than the student next to them, right? Depending on their standards. This is only meaningful to the student based on their own standards. We cannot impose our own standards on them, right? Like, for example, we can't say, if you don't have at least 2 good friends, then you shouldn't be satisfied with your friendships. Some of the introverts in the class might be completely satisfied just having 1 friend, and that's okay. What personal leadership teaches students is how to own their own standards, how to own their own lives. The only area that we want to push their standards is when it comes to faith, when it comes to what they believe about truth, because there are clear biblical standards there, right? For what we should think about God, what we should think about other people, how we need to live in this world, given the truth that it's a fallen world and that we need a savior. So those are the areas where I think we as Christian instructors are being trusted by parents to push it a little bit, to encourage faith in our students. But they get to decide how satisfied they are with their physical health, what they're eating, how much they're sleeping, their personal hygiene. That is all physical health, the amount of activity that they are getting on a daily basis. They get to decide if they're satisfied with their church life. I will say that some of my students have expressed the desire to find a youth group, because although they go to church, maybe they don't go to their youth group. Or they're not happy at the youth group that they're at, and they actually want to become better friends with those kids in the youth group so that they have a more satisfying experience of going to youth group. In the more extreme cases, students might want to switch youth groups, right? And go visit a friend's youth group. These are opportunities for students to come true to themselves. Be honest about their own thoughts, about their own lives. That is the first step of good personal leadership. Just being honest about what you really think about your own life. Family relationships. Are you satisfied with your relationship with mom, with dad, with your guardian, with your siblings, your cousins, your devotional life? This is another challenging segment. And I have been so encouraged by my own students who come to this segment and realize that they don't have much of a personal devotional life. They don't read the Bible outside of Bible class or church or youth group, but they want to. And they don't realize that having a personal dimension of their relationship with God is what is missing in their life. And you know, in my case, we set goals and we set a goal around that, and they work toward a thriving devotional life because that is what they want. Academic work is kind of self-explanatory, whether your kids are in public school, private school, homeschool, independent studied. They have schoolwork that they are responsible for, and students are very opinionated about how they feel about their academic work. Again, they get to set the standard. I tell them, you get to define what is satisfying for your schoolwork. If it means getting A's, then it means getting A's. If it means learning about history, learning about science, learning literature, and enjoying history, enjoying science, enjoying literature, then how satisfied are you? Are you learning, or are you just memorizing short-term answers for a test and spitting it out and then forgetting it? That's not satisfying for some students. Some students actually want to learn the content of the subjects. And so this is a time when they realize that they and the students around them might have different standards, and that is normal and that is fine. They need to lead their own lives. They need to set their standards and they need to challenge them. This is a good opportunity for them to ask themselves, what are my standards? And am I going to leave them as is, or am I going to raise them? In some cases, am I going to lower them? Because maybe it's not the end of the world if I don't have straight A's. Okay, the last segment is extracurricular. Again, This is where students may ask themselves, am I too busy? Do I have too much going on? Am I involved in too many sports and music activities and, speech and debate and so many options that they have, right? They get to also ask themselves about free time. Do I have healthy activities during free time? Do I even have free time? Some of my students are asking that. How do I make more free time in my schedule? That is going to be the next logical question if they assess that they are not satisfied with all the things they do outside of school, aside from their classwork. Okay, this is a super rewarding and fun activity. I have never had one student not enjoy this exercise. Yes, it is challenging and it can be uncomfortable. You can tell them that. You might, for those of you who have never done anything like this before, feel uncomfortable because you might realize for the first time that you're not satisfied with a part of your life. But that is good because that means that you, as at the governing center of your life, the person who has to live your life, you get to choose what you want to do about it and what changes you want to make so that you can improve your score in that area of life. This is where they get to experience personal leadership through this activity and not just as a theory, not just as a concept. And I encourage you too, as their leader, to do it with them. And maybe you become the vulnerable one who will share your answers with them and give them some rationale for how you're thinking through that particular segment of your life. I find that the more vulnerable we are as teachers, the giving them personal examples really helps them to get through this exercise and to maximize it and to make the most of it. Okay, so have fun with this activity.